This is a show about facing fear, unlocking courage, and taking action.
Courage isn't necessarily a daunting thing.
It's going to give you more purpose. It's going to give you more drive.
It feels like making a courageous decision is going to get you closer to who you aspire to be.
It's knowledge plus faith plus action equals courage.
I mean, cancer survivors are badass, right? They stand for resilience, tenacity, the strength, especially in crisis, right? They have all these superpowers, just the winning experience. Who doesn't want a winner on their team?
All right, I gotta admit, I love my music. I love the podcast music. And I wanted to like give a quick shout out before my guest today and I kind of take off and jam to my man Ben Zebelman. Ben is, first of all, he's a ridiculously talented composer. He's a great overall guy. We went to college together, which is how I found him. I was like, he's done stuff for me forever. And just like an overall good dude. So if you do ever need a composer, by the way, this is hashtag not an ad. He's not paying me. I don't even think he knows it's coming. I just wanted to give him some love because I love the music so much. And so thanks, Ben. Go check out benzebelman.com. Okay. Shameless plug that he doesn't know, over with, but just I love it so much. Just kicks us off the right way. Now my guests who had to sit through that, I'm pumped. You're smiling, so I'm assuming you like the music too. Eason.
Yeah, it's it's like the Navy SEALs feeling. You kind of expect, okay, this is an American story.
Yeah, I'll take that. Yeah, okay. Well, don't you think your story is an American story?
I think so. A part of it, yeah.
Oh, we're gonna get into this. What a great way to kick this thing off. Uh, hey, let's also give a second shout out to our mutual friend Dave Holloway, who thought we would get along, and boy, was he right. I've really enjoyed getting to learn your story, Eason, and we're both living on the same side of the brain, and we're both trying to figure out a ways to make a dent and a difference. I wonder though, look, my negative blessing, and I like that term, my negative blessing was very different than yours. Now at the time mine felt intense because I was like a 28-year-old, kid in New York that was let go from a big bad behemoth of an agency, and I felt like my world had ended. And I remember feeling very like pissed off meets scared as I was leaving that building. But like your negative blessing, I mean, it really is a life or death negative blessing. Can you share a little bit about your negative blessing and your story?
Yeah. Where, do I start with? I have quite a few of those. I'm a cancer survivor, first of all. So I guess, probably, the most intense negative blessing I got was a few years ago. I was diagnosed the very last day of 2016. I was sitting in a pretty big job in a tech company in Silicon Valley. I got diagnosed the day, and the entire family, we just freaked out. We basically shit our pants. I mean, is this gonna be censored or
Come on, brother, we're gonna keep it real here. All good.
right? And we were just scared to death, and no one knew what to do. And I had to quit my job the next day. I didn't tell anyone what was going on because I didn't even know how to start that conversation. But I just knew, like, I wanted to live. I wanted to save my life, so I had to focus on this for a while. And that was also a pretty well. I hate to use the word interesting, but it was a very just tricky timing. My wife was going to give birth to our daughter in 7 days, and it turned out I actually had my first surgery scheduled in 6 days. So we completely missed each other's, big moments in our lives. And yeah, ever since that, the end of 2016, our life, just turned upside down for quite a few years. And that's, how everything started.
I'm curious what You said it was the last day of the year.
Yeah.
So were you just feeling sick? I mean, like that's sort of a week where, I mean, unless you have to go anywhere, it's kind of time just to chill, right?
Yeah, well, true. But when you actually felt a lump, in your body, and you went in, and that was also the first time we heard the word cancer, and that was also the first time I would actually connect the two terms, the cancer and tumor, because the doctor used the term tumor in the beginning, and we got confused, and we asked the question. It was very silly, looking back. We asked the doctor, "What do you mean tumor? Is that the same thing with cancer?" We asked all these silly questions, and the doctor was pretty chill. He was like, "Yeah, that's the thing we're talking about."
So you're like trying to put this in your brain on like this isn't exactly how I thought I would learn that I have cancer. And
Right. And and also, like, you coming back to our family story, everyone, we were just expecting our child, right? Our daughter in a few days, and we were in this mood, like a new chapter of life will actually pan out, and this is something you're actually really looking forward to, and bam, you're just like suddenly on the other side.
7 days later, I'm assuming a baby showed up, boy or girl.
Yeah, it was a girl.
I, did you feel like you could enjoy? I want to be real careful on this one because she may listen one day, right? So
Once,
talk.
yeah, when she's 18, maybe. Right.
Okay, right. But like, just take us back to that moment. Do you feel like you could sort of compartmentalize the cancer news or
Uh,
no?
no, I couldn't. I guess no one could. And for such a long time, I guess I just turned completely cuckoo, just like mental. I was, just hung up on this idea. Why the timing, and is there a message? Or what are you trying to tell me? And, all these things. But no, we couldn't really, figure out anything. We were just, it's a mixed feeling. There's a new life, right? A new chapter of our lives, but also we were just scared. And in by the time, I didn't even know if I was gonna live, or how this gonna look like for us. So yeah, we were just figuring out. And but I'll be honest, like I think by the time, we didn't even know that was just the beginning of this dark tunnel. We had no idea.
First of all, I it's so funny when stuff happens to us, like we're such meaning making machines
Yeah.
that you're like, this must mean something. Like the universe must be at play. So I don't know if you're a religious guy, are you a spiritual guy? Are you
I'm not. I was born and raised in Beijing, China. So, religion is not a thing. I'm not religious, but I could see, because we briefly mentioned this last week, right? I could see where you were coming, and yes, sometimes we were just wondering, like, there has to be something, a higher power in the universe trying to deliver a message. We just don't know what that is in the moment, right?
and at this time you said you were working in Silicon Valley. What were you doing? Where were you working?
I was creative director at Uber. And yeah, that was a great job. I was probably that was a dream job for me for a while, because I loved the mission. I loved the pace of the company. It was super, super fast, very mission driven. We were building big teams, building a lot of products, and it was just going.
And then how like fast after the diagnosis did you leave? I'm assuming you left or you stayed there.
I just left the next day. I didn't, tell people like, why or what was the reason or something. But also like the company was in so much change at the time, so no one was really trying to dig into that. I guess people just assumed, okay, I had my reason. But yeah, it was very, very quick because I couldn't even process anything else besides my health.
So yeah, take me through the war, man. Like take me through what the next couple of years were like, and from a support system standpoint also, did you feel, I mean, like at this point, your wife, it has a new role called mom, right? First baby, first time that threw on that, right? New label there. So like, what was it like? Like, I mean, the next, was it a year battle? Was it a 6 month battle? Was it a everyday battle over 6 months?
Yeah. Oh, that's a great question, actually. We thought, well, I guess we just didn't understand cancer like everyone else in our society, right? We just didn't understand cancer that much. And I thought I just wanted to kill it as soon as possible. So our lives and my life could actually, get back on track. Um, but it wasn't really that case. I ended up spending 2 years, going through the treatment, and that thing just kept coming back to me. Just got so annoyed, when it came back. It's like recurrence, like again. So I ended up spending 2 years doing all these things, and finally by the end of 2018, I was confident, I was possibly, coming out on the other side. But yeah, there was a 2 years battle. And I think my wife and I, we were like in a partnership, for that 2 years. We were focusing our, you know, missions, like different kind of that, right? Because fighting cancer is very lonely. It's a lonely battle. It's on your own. Even like the people, your family, your friends, they love you, but there's nothing they can actually help you with. It's just you and the disease. That's it.
This might be a strange question, but did you did you talk to your cancer? Like, would you have a convert? Like, would you be like, "Fuck you, cancer," or like, would you be like, "I'm gonna beat you, cancer," or "What the fuck, cancer?" Like, what would you say to
Yeah, there's a lot of, cursing, all that.
it?
Cursing all the time. Yes, it's just like I said, I had a few times recurrence, and when it came back, I just get more and more annoyed. And at a certain point, I was just like, fuck it, I want to end this relationship. You have no chance. I just don't want to see this anymore. I just want my life back. I'm so annoyed at this time. It's not even like the anger or anything, just annoyed.
Well, you're just so damn lovable, Easton. That's why this thing kept sticking to you. You're just a magnetic personality. Didn't want to leave you or your body. All right, so we talked about your wife's labels, right? Where she went from wife to mom. I mean, you have a lot of labels now too, right? You're a creative director. You're Silicon Valley survivor. That's not a survivor I think you thought I was going to use. Uh, you know, husband, father. How hard was it for you to wear the label of father?
That was very heavy in the beginning because I didn't even, get to meet my daughter until she was, 1 month old. We were just like in two hospitals, and I was impatient for a long time, and I missed the whole thing when my wife was giving birth to our daughter. And yeah, so I didn't even get to experience that father, label until we met in person, right? So that was really strange, but that was also like that was so hopeful for me as a person, as as someone like going through the entire process in that thing. I just felt like that possibly was another part of the message, this higher power trying to deliver. Because all these things just like intertwine and so complicated. And but it was great feeling. And every time we're looking at this greedy, we're just thinking like, okay, we have to keep going, whatever, we're fighting. There's no way we're letting any of these things go.
So this reminds me of a conversation I had with a guy named Gary Ware. Gary Ware's the man. You'd like him. He's like a little Yoda. He
No,
has a book. He's got a book called Breakthrough Play. There go my dogs, by the way, if you can hear them. Shout out to my dogs. Um, Gary does this thing. I brought him into like kickstart a lot of my keynotes or workshops, and he does this one exercise that just shows you how bad we are at multitasking. We're just not wired to do it. And as I think about your journey, it's like you got to put the creative director role to the side. You got to put the role of like, I mean, good husband sometimes to the side or father to the side. You just have to fight. There's no multitasking going on, and you just have to fight. And you fought the first time for what you said, 2 years?
it was 2 years.
All right, so walk me through that conversation. Same doctor, by the way, or different doctor?
Oh boy. So many doctors, so many hospitals, because so many times of these coming back and annoying stuff, right? And the last doctor I had, well, he's and the doctor team actually my ultimate cure. I'm gonna say that because I'm knocking on the wood. I'm
Knock away.
4.5 years cancer free. So a little knowledge there. Until 5 years, any cancer survivor can say like, officially you're a survivor, because that's just the mark matters to anyone. Anything within the 5 years mark, it's small. So yeah, I met my doctor, the last doctor, because we had quite a few, and I think that was the point. I found this doctor I was desperate. At this point, at that point, I was just like, well, I needed to go out, find a cure for myself. And let's say this, fortunately, I actually, had very same type of cancer as Lance Armstrong. So that's just the way I found my doctor, because I just Googled, the doctor of Lance Armstrong. And it turned out he's this brilliant old guy in Indianapolis. He started all the research for, these things when he was a PhD student at Indianapolis. And he's been doing this for his entire life. And I just called his office, and he was like, yeah, we're not very close to where you are right now. By then I was with my family. We were living in Beijing. So he was like, yeah, it's gotta be a long flight, but if you want to come out here, we're gonna take a look at you and try to figure out things. So that's how I decided to. Yeah, I know that's a lot, right?
Yeah, not it's all good. I'm just like, so you're back in Beijing. Is your wife and child with you?
Yeah, entire family, because our parents, they all live there too. So it's just entire family. We needed all the family support and all that. So we were living in Beijing by then.
Well, I'm sure though it wasn't well, you picked up on the first ring type of thing, right? I mean, like, what was that process even like to get to him?
Um, that was a pretty big mental barrier, because when you Google this person, you would think, oh, has to be a very famous doctor, right? Why would he just pick up a phone with anyone, find out his story on the internet? But no, actually turn out these doctors, they're just brilliant, they're humble. And his name's Dr. Lawrence Einhorn. He still sees patients until this day. He's probably already 84, something like that, until now. And but the mental barrier was, it's just physically that's just so far away, right? And it can't you can't really get to him like drive 3 hours or something. If you wanted to, be impatient with him, you have to go through all these things. So yeah, you have to like just talk yourself through this and just push through. And I guess there also another thing intertwined with it. It's at the time I just didn't know if that was going to, work out or not, right? And, there's always this thinking behind all these, mortality thing. If you were going to die, at least you're going to die home. You're not going to die like right out there 10,000 miles away. Um, but yeah, I just deeply inside, I just believed like I knew if anyone could save my life, that would be the person.
So,
So
so Dr. Einhorn is in Indiana, and you're in Beijing, and now it's how the hell do I get to Indiana? So, do you move to Indiana?
we flew there. Well, yeah, we moved there for a couple months, a few weeks before all the treatment started, and stayed there for a couple months after a big surgery. Yeah, sort of like just moved there. Bam.
Do you feel like a lot of, I mean, I don't know the data on this, and I guess if I'm the listener, obviously the fact that Eason and I are having this conversation, this is a positive story. And I mean, you had to jump through a lot of hoops, and you had to really believe that you could beat it. And it sounds like you did the research to find the right support system to help you. What percent, if you had to guess, what percent of people that hear you have cancer or you have a tumor, which is cancer, do you think just give up? Just don't fight.
I don't think anyone would actually give up. That just makes why cancer survivors, this group of people, they're just super strong, right? Resilient, tenacious, and courageous. Because you're, there's the fight just between you and that disease, and you have to win, right? There's only one win. There's no choosing, right? So yeah, no one's gonna give up, and everyone's gonna, fight until the end, or
I'm
until
not, this might be really insensitive.
yeah.
I'm not sure that I don't have the data. And I also don't know if I've never been in your shoes. But as a new dad, I knew you weren't going to give up. As someone that's thousands and thousands of miles away, staying curious and doing what you need to do. And again, we're going to get to NED here in a minute. So you're really on the front lines. But did was Dr. Einhorn the same doctor that said tumors tumors been zapped or you're cancer free? Was that a different doctor?
Different doctor. I switched, with doctor teams and doctors for a few times. Just yeah, because Dr. Einhorn was my hope, at the end. Yeah.
Take me to that conversation when you heard, way to go, man. Like, yes, and we gotta get to 5 year mark, but like, who told you? How did they tell you? Were you in Beijing? Were you back in the States?
The 5 years mark.
Well, no, when you first heard that you were cancer free the first time.
Yeah. Um, that was no, I was in the States. That was after the treatment in Indiana. So probably a couple weeks later, because they did a big surgery on me. Basically the theory there was, they're gonna clean up all the lymph nodes in your abdominal area, and it just like took out everything they didn't like, just throw them away, and put everything they liked back there. Um, and they told me after the surgery, like they found out, XYZ, and they were like super confident because it worked very well. So that was, the first thing. When you heard someone like Dr. Einhorn actually said that in person to you, you had that confidence. You knew like, okay, this is gonna work, right? I came to the right place, I met the right person, and it worked.
I mean, even that, like knowing where to go, asking curious questions, right?
Yeah,
Where to
but
say yes versus where to say no, I think is critical.
yeah, and still, at the time, like even he said that all these things to you, you knew you still, had to count that 5 years, day by day for 2000 days, right?
So 16 is when you heard it, like at the end of 16,
Yeah.
right? Really 17, right? Because Happy New Year, right? Happy New Year. And then, I mean, 17 to 20, we're beyond 5 years at this point, correct?
But from the diagnose, but not the cancer free,
Okay. So when did you feel, I mean, asterisk, knock on wood, right? All the things, spiritual universe, right? When did you feel like you could breathe and you're just like, okay, maybe I'm okay?
um Honestly, I think cancer is this thing like we can breathe, but we're constantly thinking about it. Every morning, I guarantee you, every cancer survivor, every morning we wake up, we just know like we're thinking about it. It's in the back of our head, right? Every day we're thinking about it. But I think the first time when I realized was I could probably move forward a little, just take a little bit breath, was when the doctor told me that, and I had a little bit recover time, for a couple months, and I was thinking, okay, now I need to move forward. I need to get back to my career. I need to get back to my life and just continue living again.
Of course, the rest of the world did not take a lifetime out, right?
Yeah, yeah,
We're all busy, 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 right? At Uber, they're moving forward, and like you said, there's a big culture change there, and you're fighting the fight. How much time went by, you think, and did you feel like you were sort of slipping or getting left behind as the world was moving forward?
yeah. Well, yeah. So when I had the thought, I wanted to go back to my career. I wanted to, move forward. That was already, the end of 2018, and I started to look for work and trying to get back. January 2019. So that's solid 2 years out. And during that 2 years, I already had the hunch like I became a workplace fallout, just very, very quickly since I quit the job. And suddenly I realized I became a society fallout because, you have this label, you're a cancer patient, right? You're in and out of hospitals. This is your life. You're focusing on the fight, and all other things physically irrelevant to what we were doing at the time. So yeah, for that entire 2 years I just felt like, okay, well, whatever was coming after the treatment was not going to be easy. There's going to be a transition, um life, for career, for everything.
I mean, as a creative and a creator, I mean, we're emotional, like everyone's emotional, right? Beings, but some are more, right? Some wear khaki pants and work in
Yeah.
Excel. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. Right? We love everybody, but like as a emotional being who's gets compensated to be in that world, like, do you feel like your skills were slipping, or did you feel it actually birthed also a purpose, and then you wanted to pursue that purpose.
It was a purpose, of course, I think I had that very clearly. Like I didn't want to do, small jobs or, not mission driven jobs anymore. I thought it was a very clear purpose. I'm gonna have to do something bigger than I ever and I think that's, also every cancer survivor probably had that thought at some point.
So, yeah. So why? And tell me. I mean, why did you go ahead and leap into Not Entirely Dead? And again, for those of you who are listening, check out notentirelydead.org, and you will see this community in this universe that Eason created.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So, during that 2 years we were talking about, I realized this fallout aspect of cancer patients and cancer survivors, workplace fallout plus society fallout, because, when you're doing all these things, your life is pretty isolated, right? You're focusing on this thing. You wanted to live, you're fighting. And when you're trying to make that transition, making the leap, going back to the career, I realized a few things when I was first interviewing jobs. I realized that the workplace didn't really understand how to communicate with people, right? They basically, the recruiters, the hiring managers, they wanted to ask you this question. They just don't know how to ask. They wanted to ask, is in the back of their head. They wanted to ask you, do you still have it? Right. But they go about it with it, just like all kinds of stuff, like, what have you been doing for the past 2 years? Like, are you still relevant? Like, can you still do this job? So all these things, people, they got stuck there. But you read them, you could see like, okay, well, I know what you're coming from. You just wanted to say like, do you still got it? And I experienced all these bias, unconscious bias, stigma, and let's say just, discriminate this experience, your cancer experience, or for, a lot of other probably severe disease. In the workplace, people look down on these things, right? Because your career is not linear. You're not climbing that ladder. You basically take your time off. So I experienced all these things, and we're creative. So I just started to think all these insights. Basically, the communication there is wrong, and the bias, the stigma, all, pointing to this thing is called a career gap, right? A resume gap, because you have time off. So I started to think, okay, this is gonna be harder. But I was also thinking, well, it's not just me, right? It has to be millions of people suffering this together. And I think today, as I started Not Entirely Dead.org for several years, I could say this is very relevant to many, many others, not just people who have cancer. Even like that group of people, it's millions in the world. But we can, speak to moms, right?
Totally.
Veterans, whoever got laid off, and couldn't find work for a long time, and prisoners. Everyone will suffer from this thing called the gap. We're like fighting on this. In the beginning of 2019, I didn't really understand all these things at the time, but I understood the bias. So I wanted to fight back. I wanted to fight back. I wanted to have my career back, but I also wanted to fight back everyone else. I know we're all in the same boat. We just need to, start the fight.
This is one of the things I'm working on right now, and it's not figured out, but in the spirit of sharing, even when things are messy, I try to keep it real. I think the sometimes, look, classic storytelling 101, right? It is a fight. It's almost always good versus evil. There is an enemy. It doesn't mean you have to be like it needs to be toxic all the time, but we're working on something right now called villain verification. And it's like you have to verify the villain, which helps you clarify your purpose. And when you have that villain figured out, you can go right at it. And I think you're right. It's like the gap. And I appreciate you saying, first of all, like 600,000 young adult cancer survivors in the US who are like, let's go. They're ready to get back to work. Um, but then to your point, and I don't know the number, like my wife, we made the choice 10 years ago when my son was born. Better for, if possible, better for her to raise our children, right, than somebody else. This was it was a luxury, frankly, and a choice we made. And about 3 years ago, she started to get restless. And that, so imagine the stream. I think if you look at life, work life, professional life, like a stream, and then one day you're a flying fish and you end up flying out of the water, and all you do is you want to get back in the stream and swim again. And I know she's passionate about becoming a therapist. If she could survive me, right, she could clearly help other people.
Yeah.
And for you, the same thing. It's like, it's so interesting to hear, Eason, you say this you versus you battle, that which is what you versus cancer was. Now it's like, how do I bring everyone together? I can't be the only one feeling this. Do you feel like you're building a community, is not entirely dead, like a communal thing, or is it a resource thing, or all the above?
It's all in both. And we have been building a community. We have been building a community for cancer survivors, because this is a safe space for cancer survivors to talk about our issues related to career, and we can all come together and try to, solve problems together. And today we're also offering coaching service to cancer survivors, because people would need all these strategies, for confidence, readiness, and also the resource, right? So we have the coaching programs for cancer survivors. So it's a community, it's a mutual aid community, but we also offer them all these things to get them ready to going back there, or if they are already in the work but stuck somewhere, or just don't know how to communicate with their colleagues in the workplace, we also help them to stretch that bit too. So yeah, it is a community.
So NED, if I'm getting this right, which tells you that I have not had cancer before, no evidence of disease. Is that what it is? That's what it's called, like medical term?
That's the medical term. When your doctor tell you you're net no evidence of disease, that's like the first sign. Okay, cancer free.
Okay. And then not entirely dead, where did that come from?
It's an inside joke. I think it comes from this collective dark sense of humor of all cancer survivors. Because it's this thing like we can joke about it, right? Not everyone else. We can joke about it because that's basically how we see ourselves, and possibly like how society see us. Yeah. But I realize people appreciate that honesty. Yeah.
Well, my favorite line on the whole website is, want to get tough shit done, hire a cancer survivor. And, you talk about courageous. Yeah, sometimes it is going through the hard and not sidestepping the hard. Even if you didn't ask for it, obviously, people don't, ask or summon cancer, right? And I kind of feel like we're full circle on this. I'm curious if you're, in an odd way, this negative blessing. And do you see cancer as a negative blessing? Because yes, it was fucking clearly hard. Maybe we'll beat that one out. But like, it brought you the opportunity for purpose and to build this community. So, I mean, I know it sounds crazy, but do you see it as a negative blessing?
I actually have mixed feelings on that, but I can tell you, Ryan, I'm not one of the people you see on TV like talking about cancer. Oh, that's a gift. No, it's not. We hate it every second of it. We just hate it, to our gut. And I think a lot of the creative ideas come from that side because we want to fight, we want to win, and we want to hack this um, in the workplace, in the society. So I can't really say, how much that negative blessing is, but because you asked me this, I think last week, if I were gonna, have this same life again, or what if this, never happened, several years ago, I would say, of course, I would love to just have a normal life, right? Who would want this in our lives? Even brought in so much purpose. We're, doing all these things for the world, but still, for several years, our lives was just upside down, possibly still, until today. Um, yeah, we just love a simpler life, a normal life, and but that's just not life. The shit happens. You just have to like deal with all these things and push through and work with whatever you got.
I mean, obviously, there's a lot of shit that happened to you, and now you're trying to take it to the world with some of these ideas, right? Where do you feel like you need the most help?
These days I think because we've been building the community, the coaching programs, and we're also gonna launch a peer mentoring program, just one-on-one peer mentoring, because we experienced like collaborators who graduated from the coaching program, they have the need to serve the community. They wanted to contribute, so we wanted them to pair with other cancer survivors so they can troubleshoot together. And we also offer a platform for cancer survivors to come in to build their dream career. Basically, the message is, when no one's taking a chance on us, we're just going to take a chance on ourselves, right? So we're going to build all these things, and we're going to let the cancer survivors take all these work out there and find their other dream jobs. And we're focusing on partnerships and funding at this stage. We wanted to work with big corporates on, building more programs, because we're talking about the life transitioning, the work transitioning, not just for the severe disease people, like we talked about moms, veterans, anyone who need the transitioning. We can actually offer this service to the corporate. We're putting these things into curriculums. We offer these things to the corporate, and they could work with us, and we can offer the service to their employee, whoever need the service, when they're like figuring out that transition mode.
What's sort of do you have a BHAG? Like, do you have your audacious goal that you're shooting for? Or is it just like, you know what, Ryan, we're chopping wood here. That's okay too.
We are chopping wood here, because we have so many goals, and myself, I have a lot of goals. I always tell you, like, the biggest lofty goals first. It's I wanted to shift this mindset, shift this narrative for all cancer survivors, in our society and in the workplace. Because whenever we're talking about cancer these days, people, they tilt their head. It's like, oh, I'm sorry. No, don't be sorry. I mean, cancer survivors are badass, right? They stand for resilience, tenacity, the strengths, especially in crisis, right? They have all these superpowers, the lived experience, just the winning experience. Who doesn't want a winner on their team? So that's, what I'm celebrating and selling for cancer survivors. I want to make the workplace realize these are the people, the winners you actually need on your team. And for the society is, whenever you are talking about cancer survivors, you're going to have to clap, because you have to see the other guy, right? We're the winners. There's nothing to be said about. So that's the narrative change I'm working on. And for all these tactics and the goals for probably for this year or the next a few years, we're going to work with more corporate partner, more cancer centers. We're gonna scale our community. We're gonna bring in more cancer survivors into um, our programs, coach them, let them, find their purpose, land on their dream jobs, and we're gonna be a collective voice for all cancer survivors. And at the end of the day, we're a collective voice for everyone who needs this life and work transition.
So I'm curious if your daughter was listening to this. Okay, she doesn't have to listen to this, but she's 7 now, I believe, right?
6.5.
Right, 6.5. All right, so I have a spicy 7-year-old over here on this side, so I get it. But I'm curious, when she sees Daddy and hears of Daddy's story, what does she think?
Um, that's a good question. You know, going back to you asked me like 40 minutes ago, I think that was a question I asked myself when I first met my daughter, because I was, in that fight. I was just thinking like, what kind of person I wanted my daughter to see me, when she's, you know, grown up one day. And a corporate executive, that's nothing, right? It just means nothing. And I wanted her to see me as this person, her dad never gives up on anything. That was, the thing I wanted my daughter to understand. That's a life lesson, I think, for her to understand no matter how hard it is, how difficult it is, how much shit's going on, we just don't give up.
Amen, man. Yeah, I look, I this isn't the first time I've talked about the idea of tough love.
Yeah.
Tough, you're kind of a jerk, but tough love, right, is something else. And what I love about you, Eason, is that you are an optimist, even though you've had some tough shit happen. And kind of to take us home here to end, I know you've spoken on like the TEDx stage. I think you've spoken at Creative Mornings. Like when you think about those stages, or let's say this was a stage and you wanted to sort of address this audience, what are you hoping they extract away from this conversation?
I think for different stages, there are, different audience. They're looking for different things. Some of these stages, they're like looking for, they just wanted to know how you hack these things, in design process. Some people, they just look for a inspirational story. But I think for your platform, we're talking about, courage. I guess it's really important for, everyone to understand there are a lot of people who really climb that high mountain, achieving all these things. But what's really hard is when you get really lonely, when the downside, actually all these things happen, right? You have to do these things on your own, because a lot of people, they just leave you from your life and just leave you alone. And you have to do all these things again, probably from scratch, or even lower than whatever scratch means. And that takes a lot of courage, just to put yourself together, to summon all the powers you have, and just to rise again, and just to fight, and just to go back to your life, and just to live every day. I think that's really, really difficult. When you get everything, you're fine. You don't need the courage, I think. But one thing, everything is like working against you. That's when you need it.
Well, I love that comment about rising again, right? And
I think that's just
having
a survivors. It's all about the rise. It's all about the rise.
and enjoy the ride, right? I think it's enjoy the ride too. And to me, I'm not great with small talk. I'll do it,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I like this. I like hearing you're enjoying the ride and the rise. And Eason, we root for you, and hopefully maybe you can come back in maybe 18 months. Knock on wood, with that 5-year mark, first of all. But second, I just want to know like how NED is going, and just keep us posted on how we can help, because we're down to help, man.
Yeah. Lovely.
All right, man. Good for you. Thanks for joining us. See you soon.
Thank you so much, Ryan.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Courageous Podcast. If you enjoy the show, don't forget to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts so more people can find us. See you again next week.